Hello sir, I am James Gumera from base MT1B, and in this video I will going to recite the rule number 1 to rule number 38. Rule number 1, application. It means these rules shall apply to all vessels upon the high seas and in all waters connected there with navigable by seagoing vessels. Rule number 2, responsibility. It means nothing in these rules shall exonerate any vessel or the master, or crew therefore of from the consequence of any neglect to comply with these rules, or of the neglect of any precaution which may be required by the ordinary practice of seamen or by the special circumstances of the case. Rule number 3, general definition. And rule number 4, application. These rules in this section applies in any condition of visibility. Rule number 5, lookout. Every vessel shall at all times maintain a proper lookout by sight and hearing, as well as by all available means appropriate in the prevailing circumstances and conditions, so as to make a full appraisal of the situation and of the risk of collision. Rule number 6, safe speed. It means every vessel shall at all times proceed at a safe speed so that she can take proper and effective action to avoid collision and be stopped within a distance appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and conditions. Rule number 7, risk of collision. It means every vessel shall use all available means appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and condition to determine if risk of collision exists. Rule number 8, action to avoid collision. It means any action to avoid collision shall be taken in accordance with the rules of this part and shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, be positive, made in a made in ample time and with due regard to the observance of good seamanship. Rule number 9, narrow channel. It means a vessel proceeding along the course of a narrow channel or fairway shall keep as near to the outer limit of the channel or fairway, which lies on her starboard side, as is safe and practicable. Rule number 10, traffic separation scheme. This rule applies to traffic separation scheme adopted by the organization and does not relieve any vessel of her obligation under any other rule. Rule number 11, application. Rules in this section applies to vessel inside of one another. Rule number 12, sailing vessel. When two sailing vessels are approaching one another so as to involve risk of collision, one of them shall keep out of the way of the other. Rule number 13, overtaking. Notwithstanding anything contained in the rule of Part B, Section 1 and 2, any vessel overtaking any other shall keep out of the way of the vessel being overtaken. Rule number 14, head-on situation. When two power-driven vessels are meeting on reciprocal or nearly reciprocal course so as to involve risk of collision, each shall alter her course to starboard, so that each shall pass on the port side of the other. Rule number 15. Cruising situation. When two power-driven vessels are cruising so as to involve risk of collision, the vessel which has the other on her own starboard side shall keep out of the way and shall, if the circumstances of the case admit, avoid cruising ahead of the other vessel. Rule number 16. Action by giveaway vessels. Every vessel which is direct to keep out of the way of another vessel shall, so far as possible, take early and substantial action to keep well clear. Rule number 17. Action by stand on vessel. Where one of two vessels is to keep out of the way, the other shall keep her course and speed. Rule number 18. Responsibilities between vessels. A power-driven vessels underway shall keep out of the way. Rule number 19. Conduct of vessels in restricted visibility. It means this rule applies to vessels not in sight of one another when navigating in or near an area of restricted visibility. Rule number 20. Application. Rules in this part shall be complied within all weathers. Rule number 21. Definition. Masthead light means a white light placed over the fore and aft center line of the vessel, showing an unbroken light over an arc of the horizon of 225 degrees and so fixed as to show the light from right ahead to 22.5 degrees above the beam on either side of the vessel. Rule number 22. Visibility of lights. The lights prescribed in this rule shall have an intensity as specified in Section 8, Annex 1 to this regulation so as to be visible. Rule number 23. Power-driven vessels underway. A power-driven vessels underway shall exhibit. Rule number 24. Towing and pushing. When a pushing vessels and a vessel being pushed ahead are rigidly connected in a composite unit, they shall be regarded as a power-driven vessel and exhibit the light prescribed in Rule number 23. Rule number 25. Sailing vessels underway and vessels under oars. A sailing vessel underway shall exhibit side lights and stern light. Rule number 26. Fishing vessels. A vessels a vessel engaged in fishing, whether underway or at anchor, shall exhibit only the lights and shape prescribed in this rule. Rule number 27. Vessel not under command or restricted in their ability to maneuver. Rule number 28. Vessel constrained by their draft. A vessel constrained by her draft may, in addition to the lights prescribed for power-driven vessels, in this rule 23, in Rule 23, exhibit where they can best be seen, three all-round red lights in a vertical line or a cylinder. Rule number 29. Pilot vessels. A vessel engaged in piloted duty shall exhibit 1. At or near the masthead, 2 all-round lights in a vertical line, the upper being white and the lower being red. Rule number 30. Anchored vessel and vessels aground. A vessels at anchored shall exhibit where it can best be seen. Rule number 31. Seaplanes. It means where it is impracticable for a seaplanes or a wing craft to exhibit lights and shapes of the characteristics or in the position prescribed in the rule of this part, she shall exhibit lights and shape as closely similar in characteristic and position as is possible. Rule number 32. Definition. The word whistle means any sound signal appliance capable of producing the prescribed blast and which complies with the specification in Annex 3 to this regulation. Rule number 33. Equipment for sound signals. Rule number 34. Maneuvering and warning signals. It means when vessels are in sight of one another, a power-driven vessels underway when maneuvering as authorized or required by this rule shall indicate that maneuver by the following signals on her whistle. Rule number 35. Sound signals in restricted visibility. In or near an area of restricted visibility, whether by day or night, the signal prescribed in this rule. Rule number 36. Signals to attract attention. If necessary, to attract the attention of another vessel, any vessel may make light or sound signals that cannot be mistaken for any signal authorized elsewhere in this rule, or may direct the beam of her searchlight in the direction of the danger in such a way as not to embarrass any vessels. Rule number 37. Distress signals. When a vessel is in distress and requires assistance, she shall use or exhibit the signal prescribed in Annex 4 to this regulation. And lastly, the rule number 38. Exemptions. Any vessels or of or class of vessels provided that she complies with the requirements of the International Regulation for Preventing Collision at Sea. 1960, the keel of which is laid or which is at a corresponding stage of construction before the entry into force of this regulation may be exempted from compliance. Mm, That's all, sir. I hope you understand and you like my recitation from rule number 1 to rule number 38.